Good morning, everyone. Soon to be afternoon. This is Robert T. Green, CEO, pre-post game, also known as the Players Repair to Educate, Empower, Protect the Athletes, the family's best interests alone. Today is Friday, November the 22nd. Happy holidays to everyone. Safe travels to where you may go to and far and short. Hope you guys have a blessed holiday and weekend with your loved ones. And unfortunately for me, I thought long and hard about doing this podcast pertaining to what I continue to see, and I want to bring you these type of podcasts, educational podcasts, to, as I said, educate, empower, protect the athletes and family's best interests. Because sports is not a game, and sports is all business. You can trust the facts, not the process. And specifically, I have no time anymore as I go through this being a player's rep to listen to some of these talk shows on ESPN, First Things First, and First Take, things of that nature, and have people discuss about who's blacker than who, have people discuss things they never did once before in their entire life, and continue to basically disregard or disrespect the fact of who the actual reason why these shows are actually about, and that's the actual athlete. But in this case, we're going to talk about the student athlete. I'm going to teach you guys today about something really, really important to student athletes, especially the highly exceptional student athletes, whether it's basketball or football, in particular baseball, as well as hockey. And this thing called PTD, also known as Permanent Disability Insurance. The abbreviation, the acronym is PTD. So if you guys want to learn about this, and you got athletes or you got family members that have athletes and they basically qualify for these things, please like, share this video to educate and empower, protect them. So once you get in front of the powers that be, you know what you're talking about, how to protect yourself. So talking PTD, we're talking LOV. LOV stands for loss of value. Loss of value pertaining to what you rated at, that basically is dictated to by what the major carrier, the overall carrier, no matter who the broker is Lloyd's of London. And these actual ratings and these actual scenarios where you are basically ranked is based on the fact of where many in the professional industries have looked at you through major scouting sites, not what your coach says to you in his living room or his couch inside of the university, and I'll get to that later, but based on where you actually and factually are projected at to go forward. So again, that insurances are applied to you. When it comes to the NCAA, again, usually they go through what they call the Student Athletic Fund. The Student Athletic Fund is money that's put in to basically take care of student athletes' situations that literally outside of the actual school, quote-unquote scholarship, aka financial aid, that utilize to pay for these things. So again, particularly when it comes to these actual sports, the four major sports, basketball, football, baseball, and hockey, you may be qualified for this, and for that reason alone, the max amount of PTD you qualify for can get through the Student Athlete Fund, particularly based on the NCAA rule, which again is their rule but doesn't make any sense, is $10 million of PTD, $10 million of LOV. Now, what has been going on for years under this actual model with most athletes and parents don't understand. If you look at this actual video, you go down to the excerpt below when I talk about if you're an employee, what your actual insurance rights may be in a situation if you wasn't an employee. But according to the NCAA, these student athletes are not employees. However, they just recently told James Wiseman he's required to pay back, or he is fined essentially $11,000 or something that happened when he was not even a student. So if that is the case, then he's actually being penalized as an actual employee. So I hope Mr. Wiseman, attorney, and whoever his representation may be, as I said before, at this point, if I was Mr. Wiseman, I would take my talents on the road, because at the end of the day, all he's doing right now is bringing free marketing, free advertising, and putting his body on the line for people that clearly don't have his best interest in mind. Trust the facts, not the process. So back to this insurance pertaining to the LOV and the PTD. One, any person in the United States of America that is going to qualify or going to request insurance, and I'll break it down simple as this. We talk about things such as Aflac, Geico, State Farm, and you as a student athlete, you're in college right now, and you as a parent, you put your son and your daughter there, and they have a car, and you basically have an insurance provider. One of those brokers call, say, we want to offer you insurance. We want to offer you State Farm insurance. We want to offer you Geico insurance for your vehicle. This young man, this young lady may have had tickets and things of that nature. So when you talk about premiums and the cost of that, you as an actual athlete or parent have to justify and review what is actually being presented to you to make the best interest decision on your behalf. However, so when now that Geico and State Farm calls you, whoever insurance provider, you now have the school or someone from the compliance department from the school says, hey, don't call our kid. Now again, there's not your kid. This young man, this young lady is going to a university and try to get insurance to protect their actual best interests. So, however, though, when the university, once again, who says you're not an employee, interjects themselves into your personal business, that is now a conflict of interest. That is actually illegal when it comes to insurance because you're not able to do that. However, there has been several situations pertaining to this actual process and product that most parents, athletes don't know, and even people in the industry don't know, that the NCAA, once they find out that you are applying for insurance, specifically if it's for a loss of value or for a PTD plan in particular, they now want to basically ask you questions that actually is not really privy to them. The only reason why that insurance information be privy to the NCAA if you are requesting to have the NCAA or that university pay for your insurance or what you qualify for. The broker who you decide to choose is your right legally, and if they tell you otherwise, that is a conflict of interest, that is coercion, and you need to seek legal counsel pertaining to that. Trust the facts, not the process. However, when you talk about how much money the NCAA has made and gained and grown over the last few years, particularly with guys such as a Tua and such as a Zion, who now is not playing in the NBA, unfortunately, right now, due to several injuries that he had that started to begin with the actual NCAA and the powers that be. So now, what I really believe happened, and again, you're not going to hear this on ESPN because they really, honestly, they don't have someone on that actual staff or panel who's qualified to speak on this type of topic or any other of these talk shows for that matter. That's why I decided to do these things for you and bring it to you live. And once you hear this and once you see this and when you see this all plays out, I can assure you to trust the facts, not the process which I'm about to give you. When pertaining to the University of Alabama and Tua, and when they made a statement once he got hurt that he's going to have a full recovery, once again, they say full recovery. They wasn't speaking on which this young man who was going projected to be the #1 overall pick, possibly no later than #5 in the 2020 NFL draft. That payout for Mr. Tua Tagovailoa would have been between $34 to $29 million guaranteed for 4 years with a fifth-year team option. However, saying Tua will fully recover, they did not state that Tua will basically be better than ever as he was prior to getting injured. They did not say that Tua remains a top 5 pick. They did not say that the University of Alabama should basically has taken care of Tua because he put his body and his future earnings on the line. Because as I said before, when you have articles coming out from these people saying Nick Saban calls Tua every day, he calls him every day. But when Tua got hurt, Nick Saban stood there on the sideline and watched that man lay there, bloody nose, screaming in pain. He did not even bother to walk off the sideline. So again, when you want to put something out there to take the narrative for what it really is, that's unfortunate. But I hope the families and the athletes understand that this is completely business. And at the end of the day, what Nick Saban did was not God's plan. What happened to it was not God's plan. It was Alabama's and Nick Saban's arrogance and negligence in protecting the rights of the best interests of the student athlete. And for that reason alone, Tua is $34 to $29 million less rich right now than he would be to take care of him and his family's best interests. So now, what did Alabama do to help Tua? You might find that someone would say, okay, well, we paid $10 million of PTD, permanent disability. So what does that mean? How does Tua collect $10 million of PTD if Alabama paid for that insurance? One, that means Tua no longer will ever be able to play football again. So once again, if you basically said that you covered me for $10 million, but if I did not play, I was short coming to this season $34 to $29 million. If you subtract $34 to $29 million minus $10 million, that's still a negative $19 million loss. Trust the facts, not the process. How is that in the best interest of Tua and his family? How is that God's plan? Again, secondarily speaking, loss of value. I can assure you, because I've been this going on for years. If you go back, and again, all the people out there that want to call themselves beat writers, reporters, trust the facts, not the process. Why is it you guys never asked a question to the NCAA or to Alabama or Nick Saban directly for all these guys that came out that have been injured over the years who had their draft stock, whether it's Reuben Foster once he got to the combine, if it's Deontay Thompson, the former All-American that dropped to the 5th round because he had a degenerative knee. If it's you talking about Jonah Williams, who basically was the first pick for Alabama last year, number 11 overall, whose shoulder basically had torn a labrum before he even put pads on. Why aren't you asking the questions to the powers that be over there that how was these guys covered through insurance at Alabama to ensure if something was to happen to them, for them trusting the process, for them playing in a bowl game, that their future interests and best interests will be taken care of? You can't ask that question because it never happened. So once again, what I am sure of, because Alabama, if they did take care of Tua's loss of value, once again, loss of value for Tua, again, in the NFL from the first pick to the 32nd pick, the 32nd pick would have been about $10 million. based off the NCAA, the way they put this out there, saying, hey, the athlete that's generating way more than that, we don't want to even look at even having him qualify to be able to take more, to be benefiting more than $10 million. If Tua was to get $10 million of loss of value paid for Alabama, and he basically fell from the first to the third pick to the 32nd pick, then he would collect that $10 million. So that means essentially he had to fall all the way down the first round. But no one's even talking about Tua being in the first round anymore. As a matter of fact, we got some NCAA analysts saying Tua must return to school. And I say to that NCAA analyst, no, he does not. What Tua must do going forward, and his best business interest, is do all he can to take care of his body, take care of his mind, get himself together as much as he possibly can, go train, enter the NFL draft, and go from there. Playing for the NCAA or Nick Saban anymore to jeopardize your life and your future earnings just because they want to say you can come back and do it all over again is, again, ignorance at the highest level. Sports in particular, when it comes to the NFL, do not have guaranteed contracts. So essentially, at the end of the day, even now with Tua being injured, he is not going to be able to go back and apply and qualify for and get the same amount of insurance that he would have if he was returned to Alabama, if he had it prior to getting seriously injured. And Alabama could have educated him, could have protected him in that, could have steered him in the right direction. But like I said again, I can assure you they didn't do that. So essentially, Tua lost $34 to $29 million for a hat and a T-shirt, guided by, coerced by, directed by Nick Saban, University of Alabama, and the NCAA. We just had a situation with Zion, who had it busted out of his shoe a couple months ago. Has anybody seen Zion play, Williamson play in the NBA as of yet? I know I haven't. But is the NCAA and Duke, Coach K, paying Zion for the money he made for them in the NCAA, only to have him watching where he came to Duke to go to the NBA? And anyone that sits back here and said that these kids came here to get this education and do this and do that are fooling themselves. And like I said to any parent and athlete, if you let society, Twitter, people out there that's making a living off of what you do and your decision-making process tell you that it's in your best interest to jeopardize your future, even though you spent 15 to 20 years trying to get to that future, we're in a sad state of affairs. There's a reason why athletes go broke 2 years after their actual retirement. And again, whenever that may be. There's a reason why these guys have mental and developmental issues and emotional and social based off the people that they were around, that they thought they cared about them, thought that they loved them, told them to trust the process, only to have that process cost you $34 to $29 million. And tell you it was God's plan. So, PTD, LOV, paid out by the student athletic funds. And once again, what has been going on over the years, universities have been trying to avoid paying that, essentially telling parents that if you want to get LOV and PTD, you can get it, but they've been putting parents and advising parents, the school has, to basically not use a student athletic fund, but having these parents put themselves in debt, have them take out loans to cover their sons and daughters that play for these schools, yet these schools are making millions of dollars and billions of dollars off their sons and daughters. So they're telling you, hey, not only do we want you to basically put yourself in a debt to take care of your kid, but at the same time, we want to let your kid basically let their body take care of us. Trust the facts, not the process. Now, what makes that illegal in many cases, unethical, and downright disrespectful in every area is the fact that, like I said before, if you do not have an insurance license and you're a compliance department person, you're a coach, you're not qualified legally to speak on a kid towards parent about anything pertaining to their insurance, their body, anything else. So once again, when a kid requests a HIPAA form, which is their legal right to protect their interests, but they have to request that through the actual school to get it to provide to the insurance provider, here comes the compliance department, the athletic directors, the coach asking questions. Oh, you want to get insurance? And then they basically sports traffic, coerce, direct you to their person, and then they take over the actual paperwork trail. And the parent, in many cases, trusts that process, only to find out after the fact when that kid moves forward and that claim is denied when an injury happens, it's because of the paperwork that was done by the school, was filled out improperly, and the insurance provider denied the claim. And the school looks the other way. Trust the facts, not the process. So because of that process, because of the quote-unquote collusion, because every individual person regarding the coverage of insurance is covered, to have universities, to have certain conferences tell the same parent, and you guys know if you're a parent, student athlete, highly rated athlete, that the max they will cover is $2 million. So let's talk about these millions they're talking about. 2 million, 3 million, 4 million, 5 million, all the way up to 10 million. Many athletes and parents don't understand when you feel like, oh, the school is covering this guy in insurance. So let's talk about what LOV costs. Let's talk about what PTD costs. And basically, one is a little more expensive than another, but you'll be appalled and shocked to know not much. So for a young man who essentially in a quarterback in the NFL, if you played about 8 years, you can say if he stayed healthy, if he stayed out of trouble risk-wise, he's going to collect about $100 million before taxes. That's if he plays 8 years. If he's average, that's the market in sports, in the business of NFL football today. So to cover that, if they gave him $10 million PTD, and if they gave him the $10 million loss of value, you're talking about essentially, again, $1 million of PTD coverage is about $2,000. $2,000 for $1 million. So you do that times 10. Times 10. 10,000. For LOV, it's like 1,000. So that's another 10,000. So again, you're talking about possibly a maximum amount of $30,000 when Tua comes to a game. You have him sign autographs in college. You put him on studio and TV. You have him sign autographs. He generated that in freaking the first game he ever played in Alabama. He generated that the game that he played in the national championship and won. But Alabama and Nick Saban, who's making $8 million a year and got Aflac commercials, Tua don't get afforded that same Aflac insurance commercial you talking about. But you want them to trust the process. You want to talk about God's plan. You want to smile on these people's faces. I'm going to tell the world right now what Nick Saban is doing. I'm going to get to my next point once I finish this actual podcast. So once again, you're not going to get it from ESPN. You're not going to get it from none of these media shows. They basically want to sit there and blow smoke. But I'm going to tell you here on this live, Alabama, what they've been doing, how they've been doing, and why you wonder why these kids in these transfer portals, their whole reign is going to collapse. And I said it before, and I'm going to say it again. Nick Saban will be out of college football as he needs to be within the next 2 years. Why? Because at the end of the day right now, he is begging redshirt juniors to come back because the recruiting class that he thought he was going to get, and some of those guys he did with the lies that he is told, they gone. And the last thing Nick Saban want to do is have his legacy collapse. But legacy for what? If Nick Saban, again, for all the advisement that he's doing and all the way the media wants to talk about how great of a coach he is when it comes to the NFL, why don't you guys talk about how some of these guys never get drafted high in the NFL? Why don't you talk about some of how these guys have never portrayed or never transitioned to be successful in the NFL at the level as the great Nick Saban once was? If Nick Saban is such a great defensive coach, as kids keep going back and forth to Alabama, if you see Nick Saban over the last 2 years in the national championship game, did not Deshaun Watson throw for 1,100 yards against Nick Saban? Did LSU and Joe Burrow not throw for like 500 and something yards against Nick Saban? Sports is not a game. Sports is all business. So for those athletes right now that's going through those halls of Alabama and Nick Saban bringing you to the office and closing the door and telling you he was on the phone with a general manager and telling that general manager said you were a 4th round pick when essentially you may be mid-first, late second at max, there is an actual evaluation process that Nick Saban is supposed to apply to you. You can say, hey, I am thinking about leaving. And what you can do is have Nick Saban call the NFL and they put you through this process completely independent of his personal, coerced, conflicted ways of wanting you to come back to save his job. You are not a 4th round pick, sir. You are not a 5th round pick. You'll be a 4th round or 5th round pick if you play in that bowl game, you get injured. Trust the facts, not the process. Ask Deontay Thompson. Ask Torrey Brown. Ask Anthony Averett. Ask Jonah Williams, who's the 1st round pick, whose shoulder popped out. Like it all of a sudden this happened. He didn't even have pads on. So NCAA, when you going to open up your investigation to the medical records of these guys that keep, quote unquote, not getting paid for LOV, knowing that they can't get the PTD because the PTD means they're never going to play football again. So essentially, you hedging your bet. You're telling these kids you got $10 million PTD for them. And again, the moment Tua steps back on that field again, that actual policy is null and void. So you may have spent $6,000 to cost this man $29 to $34 million, but not to mention if he played 7 years, over $100+ million, but not even talking about the marketing because his name is Tua. Is that God's plan? At the end of the day, there's a lot of things coming down the pipe when it's talk about leagues, HBL pertaining to basketball. As of right now, James Wiseman in the NCAA, if I was advising him, and I'll let you know, I would send him overseas to make $1 million and return back to the NBA draft. He shouldn't have to pay anybody back for anything. The NCAA, ESPN, and all the powers that be have made money off Mr. Wiseman since he was in the 10th grade by putting him on TV. But again, families, parents, if you think athletes, you think it's going to be the industry that's basically going to come to your aid, I'm telling you, it's not going to happen. Knowledge is power. Understanding who you are and what your worth is going to change the situation. Pay the players. No pay, no play. It only takes not even a full team. It takes about 5 highly rated guys to decide I'm not going to play in this bowl game. I'm not going to play in this NCAA Final Four. And everything is known in the NCAA and how they basically exploit, manipulate, coerce, injure, ruin some of these kids' lives come to an end. Just the facts, not the process. And as everybody that knows me, like I said before, I'm not in this industry to make friends. I'm here to save lives. I've been in the human service field for about 15 to 20 years now. It doesn't matter if it's sports. It don't matter if it's human rights. It don't matter if it's healthcare. It doesn't matter if it's at-risk youth. What you see is what you get. And at the end of the day, there's not one thing that I've said publicly or in private that when I'm talking about servicing and helping other people doesn't put them in a situation to educate, empower, and protect them. Now, the last thing I'll talk about sports trafficking. So like I said before, Nick Saban telling these guys, hey, I know somebody I want you to talk to. He'll tell you that a GM said you're a 4th rounder, but he don't give you that GM's name. Parents, athletes, learn how to interview. If you're so confident in what you're saying, Nick Saban, give them the name of that actual GM. You do that. There's a reason why Nick Saban's out of the National Football League now, and I'm going to tell you flat out, he can't get a job back in the National Football League. The players ran him up out of there. So why is you, as an athlete trying to get to the NFL, listening to Nick Saban, who couldn't make it in the NFL? Trust the facts, not the process. If you, as an athlete or a parent, like I said before, looking to get evaluated, you can request through your coach to have the NFL, if you're a junior, underclassman, evaluate you. They have scouts, people that know what they're talking about, people that have been doing this, that are independent people that can actually give you the actual advice. When you request that, they will send you back a letter to you and to that coach to advise you whether you're 1st round or 2nd round. And if you're not, in their opinion, not Nick Saban's opinion, they will say to you for return to school. That is the protocol that is provided to you under the rules through the NFL and NCAA. But unfortunately, Nick doesn't want to go that route. He wants to direct you to a third party from a group that you can check for yourself. Don't need to mention their names, but if someone in the ACC and the SEC refer you to a guy to speak to that guy, this same guy and his same company told a 1st round pick from 2018 to return to school because he's going to be a 3rd. Yet no one is understanding and knows that knowledge. But we do, because that's what we do with the players rep. So at the end of the day, if people can't put what they say in writing, if they can't put a face and name to what it is, and they can't do it publicly, I advise you to invest in yourself, not the industry. I advise you to trust the practice, not the process. I advise you to know that sports is not a game. Sports is all business. My name is Robert T. Green. I'm the CEO of Pre-Post Game. I'm here to educate, empower, and protect the athletes and the family's best interests alone. For more consultation, sports business management, situations for your own need, you got questions, we got answers, check us out at prepostgame.com. If this video educated, empowered, and protected you in any way to help you understand PTD, insurance, student disability fund, or athletic fund, to protect yourself. Don't let these people drive you to do something that you don't need to do in their best interest, not yours. You guys be well, be blessed. Have a great weekend and holiday.